Welcome to another live edition of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking some college basketball. March Madness is going to wrap up tonight as the national championship getting ready to take place here in about less than 2 hours. We got ourselves a 5:50 p.m. Pacific Standard Time schedule tip-off between the UConn Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines. Good to be talking with everybody once again here on a Monday afternoon. An eventful weekend just around the college basketball space. We had two solid Final Four games. I think people were expecting a little bit more, especially on the nightcap with Michigan and Arizona. We'll most certainly dive into that game in a few moments. But just overall, the college basketball, just the sport right now, the games on the court starting to wind down. Down to our final game tonight. We had the NIT championship game last night and a thriller between Auburn and Tulsa. Great year for Tulsa, even though despite them coming up short, winning over 30 games in the American Conference this year, making themselves a good NIT run in Auburn. Well, look, they didn't make the NCAA tournament, but kudos to them for that program. They ended up still going to the championship, ran the table in Hinkle Fieldhouse and ended up, winning a championship. If you would have told me that Auburn basketball was going to be playing April hoops, I would have laughed at you. But, kudos to that program, especially where we're at within the college basketball space and all of college athletics. A lot of teams have backed down from these postseason tournaments, and, Auburn wanted to continue to play and, in a field that was in the NIT that was centralized around mid-majors. Auburn was one of these, high major giants that came in and said, we're going to play. And they took out some very talented teams, and they ended up, when it was all said and done, having themselves a good run in the NIT. But we're not here to talk that. We're here to talk Final Four national championship here as the college basketball season will come to a close here tonight. Very quickly on just some Final Four thoughts. So heading in, we didn't do a podcast heading in just for a Final Four preview. Had some stuff on the back end of the week, kind of get tangled all tangled up, but it's all good now. But Illinois and UConn was a game that I thought was going to be a coin flip, just like everybody else. I sided with UConn in this game as they were ultimately victorious in this one, 71-62. This was just one of those games where I thought defense really stood tall here on the Huskies end, and that's the way that they've kind of gotten it done all throughout, this March Madness run that they've been on. The Husky defense has been pretty good all year, and Dan Hurley, you're just seeing how much coaching matters because. Quite honestly, I just think this is just an incredible coaching job by Dan Hurley. His assistants, Luke Murray and Kamani Young, have done a great job supporting. They've had great, I would say, just keeping that coaching staff intact. It's not going to be so much anymore now because Luke Murray took the Boston College gig. But still, I don't think people realized, just first and foremost, with the UConn coaching staff, how good it is. Kamani Young. And we're seeing now with Luke Murray, those guys can go get real jobs. And the Boston College gig, it's not pretty. It has a whole lot of work to do. But look, those are two assistant coaches at UConn that could most certainly, jump ship and go get a lot of jobs around the sport right now. And we're seeing that. So UConn's coaching staff has been awesome this tournament, and that's why they're in this spot in the national championship. But I just think, this UConn team, I can't believe they're even here right now because their team, when you just kind of look up and down, on paper, you're yes, it's good, but is it really national championship good? I personally don't think so, but that just goes to show when you have the right pieces and you scheme things up right, and you kind of have, a blue chip guys with a leader in Alex Caravan that's been there forever, you could go on a run like this. And Hurley's just been an ATM machine like the last 4 years now in this tournament. He has a chance to go for, his third national title in 4 years, which is pretty remarkable, just given the landscape of this sport now. But, look, UConn's path to get here, and I've kind of like UConn's path. Like, they've obviously ran through the gauntlet. We've talked about it over the past couple weeks here on this very podcast. But they kind of got the scare out versus Furman, right? Because Furman, like we mentioned, was criminally underseeded at a 15. And they came and gave UConn problems for over 30 minutes. UConn got a favorable matchup versus UCLA, missing their best player, took care of business there. They were up 20 on Michigan State, and just like all Tom Izzo teams do with Michigan State, they're always going to give you full 40 minutes. When they're down 20, you know that they're going to make a run. They did, but UConn held on, made their free throws late. And then Duke, obviously, with the whole Braylon Mullins shot at the end of the game, and just UConn dialing up a perfect, full court press and, making the proper traps at the right time to force some turnover and hit obviously the biggest shot in the tournament with Mullins, led to where this game was with the 71-62 win. Now, credit to Brad Underwood in Illinois. They had themselves a terrific year. By far, Brad Underwood's best team, and I thought this was probably the most bought-in team that he's had in Champaign, just because a lot of those 1-seed teams that he had, when he had like Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Coburn, that was the one that really stuck out, right? They didn't have the depth. Like, I thought their side guys, their number 3, number 4 guys just weren't as lethal compared to this team. And Keaton Wagler, when you get a guy like him, he's a star. He can make he can make like every shot 3-level score. Merkovich, we talked about him, like just a great point forward for this team. But his defense in this game, I thought, was pretty good. Like, it was like more than pretty good. Like, he had 3 blocks in the first half, and you're like, whoa. And he's just one of these guys where, he has plays like that. You're like, really? This guy's got like that type of athleticism? Yes, he does. And of course, with Illinois and, just kind of the guys that they go, this was just a really good team. But I think just the better coach and obviously just the better players, I thought, reigned supreme in a game like this with the UConn Huskies. Terrace Reed, once again, just continues to do his thing with 17 points and 11 rebounds. I mean, this is a guy now that's averaging over a double-double in this tournament, and he's really, becoming, really the engine to get this UConn team going in every single one of these games, because you're just seeing anytime Demery and Solo Ball have possession and they have an opportunity to go feed it with Reed, they're going to continue to force feed it. And that's what they relied on early on in this game, because Reed is one of these guys. He's big enough. The footwork is so good, that he could go dance in the paint and he could just go rise up 4 feet in front of the rim and take it with contact and lay it up and in. And he's doing it against some really good bigs. And that's why I'm very intrigued on his matchup tonight versus Michigan, because he's going to have to deal with, Ade Mara, who's 7'4". And I think, just what Reed's brought to this team and just how he's kind of rised and, just really been the tone setter for this team, I thought he's been really good, because he's been obviously the most consistent player on this UConn team. We've been waiting for the guards to show up. Solo Ball, the past 2 games, has been pretty good. Demery, we know with UConn, he's dealing with the injury. But still, I thought his defense was really good in a game like this. Caravan, the fact that you get 1 for 8 from Caravan, and, he was still, able to, really impact things. Defensively, he's going to get in your grill. But when you get, a subpar shooting performance from Caravan, which this is now 2 games in a row now that they've gotten this performance, and they're still able to win, that is very, very impressive. Ross came off the bench for UConn, hit some big shots in the first half when they kind of needed to, ice some things out and get the 3-point shot a little bit going. Rebe, the stats are not going to show it, only played 5 minutes, but I liked his minutes early on. The big thing is like, hey, can some of these guys stay out of foul trouble? And that's going to obviously be the number one component here tonight in the national championship. Like, hey, like Demery, like he was dealing with some foul trouble. Can you kind of stay a little bit more disciplined defensively in that area? And it's obviously much more easier said than done, of course. But UConn, I mean, they had control of this game. Illinois kind of made their run. You already know Illinois, this is one of these teams that it's a high volume 3-point shooting team. So the threes weren't going. And I thought a lot of them were forced, but that's kind of what you're going to get with, we saw it with Alabama like a couple weeks ago in Michigan. They don't care. They're going to just keep letting them fly. Illinois is not as reckless as Alabama, but they're very much, at least this team, kind of in that, I guess, 3-point shot type of high variance where we're going to live and die by it. We're going to take smart threes. Some of them will be reckless. A lot of them were kind of reckless in the second half when they're kind of just trying to, get points at will and at a high rate very quickly. So, I understand it. Like the numbers might be skewed a little bit here. But some of the, like Wagler had like 2 threes that I just simply didn't like late in the game. And, some of that comes from, just a freshman just trying to make a play and trying to make things happen. That a lot of that I think was UConn's defense, but some of them off the dribble, I didn't like as much for him, but still, like from what Illinois was able to get with this roster, able to maximize it, make one of these, runs to the Final Four that's never happened with Brad Underwood. You got to tip your cap. Obviously, the Stojakovic emergence off the bench, and kudos to Underwood because when these two teams played in the regular season, UConn kicked them in the teeth, and it wasn't even a game. And you go look at just where the team was at that point. I think they played in like December and one of those neutral site, MTEs and whatever. I think it was at MSG. And like Wagler wasn't even starting for this team. He was coming off the bench. He only played like 14 minutes. Stojakovic was still the starting point guard. Merkovich hardly played. So you got to credit the coaching staff for really trying to, put guys in different roles. Obviously Wagler, when he dropped like 45 at Purdue, that is just going to completely, jolt him into the starting lineup. But, a lot of these rosters now, they're not going to adjust. Some of them they just simply won't. Just whatever with NIL or there's stuff behind the scenes, but we've seen this before where you think a guy should be starting or coming off the bench, the coach shoots it down, and it just completely drags down the roster. And we've seen that over the years. And Illinois, I mean, you can just tell like this was a different team, and sure, the path was pretty easy for them. Like, let's not deny that either, because they went and, destroyed Penn. They beat a VCU team in the second round that got one of their best players injured, the VCU Rams, that is. They beat Houston, which obviously tip your cap when you beat the Houston Cougars in the Sweet 16. And then you beat the Iowa Hawkeye team that was just, riding high from, their tournament run. So, the first 2 games were kind of but then, you get into the second weekend, you see who they're beating. You're like, okay, yeah, this team's for real. But overall, I mean, just really good stuff there from UConn in a game like this. Illinois shots weren't hitting early. UConn's defense, I thought, was really the story in this one. And then just kind of managed a double-digit lead all throughout in the second half. I mean, Illinois was in like the double bonus with like 9 minutes left, and I thought they were going to do a little bit more with that. I thought they were going to kind of will their way to the free throw line and kind of get back into this game that way. But just UConn was able to string enough stops and hit enough shots in this game to ultimately come up on top, because this game was not from a shooting standpoint, not really pretty. 34% for Illinois, UConn 35%. But UConn just able to hold on and hit 6 more threes in a game like this. And, that's how you get a 9-point victory for the Huskies to get back to the national championship. As far as the other game is concerned, wow, very shocked by the result here. Just because with Arizona and Michigan, I thought this was going to be your national championship game. That's kind of what I told everybody. Like, hey, this game, these have been the 2 best teams all year. And you could kind of go back and, circle all the way back to December when you see Arizona just drill all these teams in the Big 12. They were kind of like the consensus number 1 team in America for a long while. And then Michigan, what they were doing in the Players Era Festival, that's when you're like, okay, like no matter what the draw is for this team, we're good. We just have to put them in the Final Four. Because you see, with their bigs, their size, their athleticism, they're gonna get a lot of these teams hell. And between Morez Johnson, obviously Axel Lendeborg, the Big Ten Player of the Year, and then you throw in Ade Mara, the UCLA transfer, who's like 7'3", 7'4". Like that 3-headed monster in the front court is just a load to deal with. And we don't even get to their guard yet. And I've talked about it a bunch, but, you see just kind of the trend in the sport right now where all these teams are just going to kind of overwhelm you with their roster construction, with kind of just these versatile bigs that could will their way and, into the paint, post you up and really just weigh you down with their size. And Michigan has been those teams this year. Obviously Mara with his size is just a monster in its own, but then you kind of throw in the versatility of Morez Johnson, who could, handle the ball a little bit, like where he can catch it at the nail and then just dribble with and just elbow you and lay it up and in. And obviously he knows the Big Ten very well from his time at Illinois. And then Axel Lendeborg, I mean, this guy is just the ultimate versatile, big man, where he can spread it out and shoot it from 3 and, go post you up the same way those other 2 guys can. And, the number one thing for me just with Michigan all year, it's like, okay, if there's one pushback, what has been their guards? Like where I was like, when I saw the team in December that drilled Gonzaga by 40, and I'm just thinking, okay, like, wow, this is impressive. Like, you're not going to get a better data point than that. Beating a full-strength Gonzaga team on a neutral by 40. And, that they were just drilling everybody in that Players Era Festival. And you're like, okay, let's see how this translates to Big Ten play. And it just continued and continued to keep going on. And the Michigan Wolverines have been, just one of those teams where, they don't really have a weakness unless they kind of beat themselves, right? And you kind of just go look back at their 3 losses in the regular season. A 3-point loss to Wisconsin, and that game was in Ann Arbor, and Wisconsin hit 15 threes in that game. They lost to Duke by 5 on a neutral court on February 21st, and that was a game that was back and forth, really got low scoring and got dragged into the mud in the second half. And Duke with Isaiah Evans just had one more shot in them. And then Michigan played the foul game very late in that game to, get it to where it was. And then they had the Big Ten title game versus Purdue, and Purdue won that game with margin. But I thought that was really good that Michigan kind of had a loss like that, just because they haven't suffered a loss in so long from that point. And it kind of, I think, really prepped them for tournament play. And this Michigan team, I mean, when you saw Elliot Cadeau, everyone was hitting the panic button with Cadeau and, his allergic reaction and all of that stuff. And, okay, is he going to be ready to play in this game? And then you just kind of see him dissect a team like Arizona. And I saw Arizona in person, folks. Like, they were unbelievable. Like, the way that they get to the free throw line and keep coming at you. And for a team that starts 3 freshmen, just so mature. And the fact that Cadeau is just, just dissecting that defense and throwing all these no-look passes, you're just like watching this game like, are you kidding me? Like, and Elliot Cadeau is awesome. Like, I think people don't realize, like, he got a lot of flack at North Carolina just because of his shot selection and just the silly shots that he takes. And look, in a game like this, he takes 17 shots. Like, that's Elliot Cadeau. That's the Elliot Cadeau experience. He's going to take a lot of shots. But, man, is the playmaking good. And that's why Michigan brought him in, is for, big spots like this and where he could really just take control and, get everybody organized and make a play. And, once when his playmaking comes around, then it opens everything else up, because he had about he had 5 assists early on in this game, and Michigan was up 10-1 in the first 2.5 minutes into this game. And Arizona, I totally thought they were going to make a run. But the fact that they were down 16 at halftime, I thought was just unbelievable. And, Drayden Bradley was in foul trouble in this game, and that's what always worries you, right? Like, okay, when a guy like Bradley, your ultimate leader, the guy that's kind of been there for you, that can go get you a bucket and slow everything down when things get tight, when he's in foul trouble, that's very problematic. And I personally kind of gave the heading into this game, I was like, okay, if Arizona can rely on one thing in this game, it is their guards. I think they do have the guard advantage. But when you have a guy like Bradley, sure, he played only 25 minutes in this game just because he was navigating the 2-3 fouls in the first half. And, Michigan was just kind of able to, will their way through everything. The 3-point shot was red hot for this team. But, when you just see everything working for Michigan, they've been unbeatable this year. I mean, they've hung 90 in every single NCAA tournament game. No team has ever done that. So, I mean, this Michigan team, there's no weakness to them, really. There really isn't. Unless, a team comes out and hits all these threes on them and it's really just an outlier performance, or it's just, they beat themselves, which a guy like Cadeau can, drag this team down. But when you get the A- version of Elliot Cadeau, they're not going to lose. And that's even with Yaxel Lendeborg only playing 14 minutes, because he had the injury early. He had the 2 fouls early as well, right? And I think that was kind of the one pushback where, okay, it's like, hey, Lendeborg, Big Ten Player of the Year, Jaden Bradley, Big 12 Player of the Year. Both of these guys are in foul trouble. What's going to happen? And I mean, Lendeborg, he played 14 minutes, but he practically didn't even play this game. And I think just Michigan's depth and them just being able to rely on, what we talked about, just with their size and then their second unit, as much as we love, Anthony Del Orso, the former Campbell Camel, coming off the bench for Arizona, I'm sorry, when you get a guy like Trey McKinney coming off the bench and Roddy Gale, next man up, those guys are, just better scorers than, Anthony Del Orso. I mean, come on. The fact that Trey McKinney, a McDonald's All-American, is coming off the bench for the Michigan Wolverines is, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that's a guy that's just boosted his draft stock, tremendously, I would say, over the past 3 games. Just because, his numbers right now, coming off the bench, are just nuts. 45 points the last 3 games, 14 for 22 shooting. And this is against elite competition. This is against, a 1 seed in Arizona and a top 3 team all year. He's done that against a very feisty Rick Barnes, Tennessee defense. And, the list goes on. We're to the point of the year now where if you're putting up numbers at such an efficient rate against these teams in March, you're doing something right. So I just think right now, Michigan, when you hang 91 points on Arizona, and for a team that's only lost twice all year, once at Allen Fieldhouse where nobody wins in Lawrence, Kansas, and to a Texas Tech team where Texas Tech stole the game late and hit it like a couple threes and won the game in overtime. Like, those are the only losses. So when Arizona gets embarrassed in this fashion, folks, you know that you're dealing with, let's just be honest, if anybody's watched the tournament this year, you're dealing with the best team in this tournament from top to bottom in the Michigan Wolverines. And of course, we didn't even get into the coaching of Dusty May, who's obviously has the tournament experience, dragged Florida Atlantic all the way to the Final Four not too long ago, just a few years ago now. And the fact that he got this Michigan Wolverines team in year one last year to the Sweet 16, and that team wasn't even, that team was good, don't get me wrong, but like, it's nowhere near the level of this team right now. So, just the fact that Dusty May has gotten to the tournament, like, in just what's really just been a short career, like, as a head coach from, in this tournament, like, his tournament resume, like, is not, like, that long, because he had the Florida Atlantic run, and it was awesome. Like, they were such a deep team there, and they were all those guys played within their roles. They had their team last year that, like, had, like, Namari Burnett, they had, some other guys, but then they come out and hit the portal, and it's a completely new team. And that team last year was in the Sweet 16. And then you see what they bring out this year. And we saw it early on in the season. If you've been following the college hoop season, you just knew, like, okay, they're going to be here. They're going to make a deep run. It's just a matter of, can they stay healthy? And we'll see what a coin flip game on paper looks like when they get into the Final Four. But the fact that they have this, profile right now with beating Arizona by 18, that's just, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And, sure, this was an 18-point win for Michigan, but man, this thing was over way early. This thing was over in the first half. And I don't think people were thinking about the Lindeborg injury, but no one was like, okay, like, they absolutely need Yaxel Lindeborg back in this game, because they didn't. Everybody was firing on such high cylinders at that point. Like, it's just like, okay, go get Lindeborg, just go put him on around-the-clock treatment at this point and prepare him for the national championship on Monday night. And, I mean, it was what really shocked me with just the Arizona performance, because, yeah, they didn't shoot the ball good. Michigan's defense was really good. They're hitting everything on the other side and all of that stuff. But it was the fact that, Tobe Awaka for Arizona, who comes off the bench for this team, like, he's even, like, getting toyed with, like, Ade Mara. Like, these are, like, some of the best front court pieces that we have in the sport. And Michigan is just going to town on them up front. So I'm very interested to see what we got here at the national championship here tonight. Just because, look, Michigan's a 6.5-point favorite in this game in Indianapolis, Indiana. And, look, before we dive into that, let's just get one out of the way first. Let's just get one thing out of the way. Because, we got a bunch of problems within the college game right now. I mean, I don't need to go off on this, but I love, but I hate just seeing all the complaints on Twitter about, oh, look at my seats at Lucas Oil Stadium. Like, to me, that just drives me absolutely nuts why we play the most important games in the sport every single year in these NFL stadiums. And I understand it's for money, it's to get butts and seats, and so you could, feed all these people that apply for media credentials, and you already know you're going to sell the thing out. You're in a basketball town in Indianapolis. Like, you already know if you put the game in an NFL stadium, you're going to sell it out. Doesn't matter how bad your seat is. People want to go for the experience. But, gosh, I mean, I would hate to buy nosebleeds at Lucas Oil Stadium and the game, like, you're just dealing with, I mean, bring your microscope. Like, it's just absolutely minuscule. Like, the players, you're looking at ants on the court. So I I would hate to be sure the Final Four would be awesome, like just to be in Indianapolis on a weekend like this one, I think would be awesome. Like connecting with people, talking to the fans, just feeling out that environment. But man, when you step into Lucas Oil Stadium and then you go watch what's on the court and you're sitting up in, section 324, I would not be the happiest camper, especially if I go look up those ticket prices right now. I'd just be shaking my head, when I could be watching an awesome product on TV and I can actually see all the players' jerseys. So look, I mean, we're dealing with transfer portal stuff. We got like the transitional period, when you got to wait 5 years or 3 years, whatever it is, from a D2 to D1 to qualify for March Madness. These are some of the things that I don't like within the sport that could get corrected. But I don't know when this one's going to change. Just because there's too much money on the line. When you're dealing with the Final Four and national championship in these NFL stadiums. And let me just say this as well. This is why everyone's going to domes now, just around like the NFL, because I think they want, first and foremost, they want to host a Super Bowl. But I think another thing is they want to, have these events and weekends like the Final Four, right? They want to just have more concerts in their building, during the winter months, not deal with weather. I get it. But gosh, I just don't know from a viewing experience in person. I question it a little bit. All right. Well, transitioning into the national championship, we got UConn, the UConn Huskies, and the Michigan Wolverines. And I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen here. Historically, over the past, like, let's just call it now 5 years, national championship has been a blowout. And it's been a lot of the time it has been with those UConn teams, just because they've been so good. I remember when the UConn San Diego State one really stands out because that one was over pretty quick. Last year last year was an exception. Houston and Florida was incredible. Came down to the final shot. But the football national championship is by far a bigger blowout. Like the best team in the tournament, like the best team during the college football playoff run. Just when you watch the playoff run, when that team gets a national championship and you watch all the games, the better team always wins with margin. Now, I'll just say this. UConn's lost 5 games all year. I can't believe that they're here. Like, I just really can't. And, we talked about their run, like the fact that they stole the game versus Duke and, got challenged versus Furman and, nearly held on versus Michigan State. Like, their journey has been pretty remarkable, like, in how they've gotten to this point. With all that being said, we just talked about Michigan a couple minutes ago and what they did versus Arizona. I mean, UConn, and you already know, if you've heard one of my podcasts, you've heard me talk March basketball, this thing is going to come down to the guards. Like I need, and from a UConn standpoint, like I need Silas Demery and Solo Ball to be insane tonight. That's kind of the first bullet point that I have. And obviously, you already know what's going to happen. First and foremost, UConn, first 4 minutes of this game. Terrace Reed, you're feeling good tonight. We already know we're going to need 25 and 17 from you tonight. I think you're going to need Terrace Reed to turn into an animal. And he's been an animal in this tournament. But he's going to have to be, the A+ version of Terrace Reed on a night like tonight against one of the most dominant front courts in college hoops this year. That's the version of Terrace Reed that you're going to need. You're going to need him to get a lot of these Michigan guys in the foul trouble. And if you could get, I would say, Ade Mara in foul trouble first and foremost, I would say that would be big because you already know Yaxel Lendeborg, he's going to give this thing a go. He's going to go run at it. You already know. Like, there's no way in God's green earth he's getting ruled out for this game. It's just going to be a matter of how effective he is in this one. Like, I don't expect him to like be running around like crazy, and you're not gonna get the A+ Yaxel in this game. And no, I get it. He came off the bench in the second half and he hit 2 threes in the game versus Arizona. And you're like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, is this really happening right now? But if you can get Mara into foul trouble, which is going to be pretty hard because he doesn't have to do too much. He just puts his hands up in the air. Like, he's so long and lengthy. Like, he's going to be able to alter every shot and impacts in some way, shape, or form on defense. But if Reed could kind of go up, hit Mara with a couple pump fakes and get, a foul or two in like the first 6 minutes of this game, and, we're still even keeled here at a 1 or 2 possession game, that's when I feel like this one could get interesting. Just because you kind of throw things off script a little bit. Because Mara played heavy minutes. He didn't deal with any foul trouble in the game versus Arizona. And we already know Arizona's front court is pretty good. Like, Krivas is 7-1 and he can go at people. Krivas was ineffective in the Final Four loss. Koa Pete, for the most part, was like held in check compared to what we saw in the West Regional in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. So obviously that is it's going to be a tall task for a guy like Reed, but Reed has been more than capable in this tournament, like to do some things that we really, weren't expecting, right? Because he had a spot where it's like, dude, Reed, you got to go hit 2 free throws right now, and when the game is really tight. And when he hit him, and he's not a great foul shooter. Like, Terrace Reed is just on a great run right now for UConn, where there's some hope when he's got to go deal with Michigan's front court that he can throw some things off script. So Terrace Reed, you're going to see him get a ton of ball touches early. And, even in the second half, because there was some points in Illinois, like Bill Raftery was saying it on the broadcast. And he was just saying, like, man, Terrace Reed needs a touch right now in the post. Like, they were just getting away from Reed in the second half. And that's when Illinois was starting to come back. So, whether he's tired or not, this is a national championship. Hurley's going to have him ready. You're going to hear Terrace Reed's name a lot tonight, especially if this one is close. But more importantly, like we said, Demery and Solo Ball got to be good. We already know Demery's dealing with the injury. They're saying 90% he'll be healthy. But still, like, he's been a little inconsistent. He missed the first couple games of this tournament. Solo Ball's the big one for me as well. Because Demery's going to bring it defensively, but Ball is, he's been all over the place this year. If you've been following the Big East and UConn and just kind of the path to get here, Solo Ball he's been a roller coaster ride this year. But if you can get an efficient Solo Ball, hits a couple shots early, you get the confidence instilled in him, that could be pretty big. You already know UConn's going to bring it defensively. You already know Hurley's going to have a fantastic plan in place. And, I think, they're going to try to slow this thing down. But Michigan, I think, is going to be able to do they're going to have control of this game. Like, because UConn, outside of the Duke game, has really been in control for the most part in this tournament. And, obviously they had to have so many things go their way in the Duke matchup just to pull that one off. But Michigan, like, when their guards are rolling and they're just scoring at will, like, you're going to have to get into a track meet with Michigan, and no one's going to be able to do that. So UConn is going to have to rely on their defense. Pace will be essential for UConn. Like, they're going to have to slow this game down, because that is something Hurley does not want. Because if he already knows, like, if Michigan is on pace to score 90, they're not going to have the horses to keep up with them. Doesn't matter if they make 15 threes and Mullins is going nuts and Caravan's having a good night. I just don't think that's going to be sustainable. So I'm interested to see, like, what happens just with the pace of play in this one, because if UConn drags this thing in like into the mud and it's walking up the court and they're hitting shots, that's when this game has the opportunity to become a coin flip game. I personally do think Michigan is going to win this game with margin tonight. Like, I just think there's going to be too much. Like, there's just too much for Michigan. Like, I don't care if, like, Yaxel Lendeborg is, like, not at 100%. They're just too deep. Like, I just think a guy like Trey McKinney coming off the bench and Roddy Gale, like, those guys hit timely shots for them. And, I rattled off the McKinney numbers a few moments ago. But, like, when you have guys, like, hitting shots like that, in McKinney and Gale, and they're coming off the bench for you, like, that's pretty wild. Elliot Cadeau is, we've talked about him. He's been all over the place, like, especially at his time at Carolina. But with this Michigan roster, he has more opportunity to kind of make more mistakes and it not costing the team just because they got so many guys that can bail him out. Because when he was on that North Carolina team last year, when it was, I'm trying to think who like they even had. Like they had like, it was only like him and like two other dudes. Like it was a subpar roster for North Carolina standards. And it was to the point where he would be taking 10 threes. And when he is 1 for 10 in a game from 3, like you're just shooting your team out of the building. But, if with this roster, he doesn't have to, he's going to still be a high volume guy. He's going to still take a crap ton of shots. But there's enough guys to bail him out. And he's almost become like a true point guard for this team, which I think, like that is very valuable. Shout out to our boy Park 30 News. He's saying I don't care is Yax plays. Well, yeah, I mean, look, man. Good to see you out here, Mitchell. Look, man. Like, dude, Yaxel, like I've said it, like Michigan's just got too many weapons. They just got too many weapons, man. Like you saw, like you and I both saw that Michigan or that Arizona team in person. Like that Arizona team was absolutely fantastic and they had very little weaknesses. And Yaxel Lendeborg was the best player in the Big Ten. And it was you're just watching that Arizona game on Saturday night. You're like, wow, Lendeborg only played 15 minutes and they're still up 25 points. Like this Michigan team is too deep. And I think they're going to win this game with margin. I think it is going to kind of be a little bit more of a high scoring game. Like UConn, I think is going to be a step behind every step of the way. But I'm saying like if UConn wants a chance to really be in this game, they got to slow it down. They got to ugly it up. And Reed's got to be incredible. I do think Caravan's going to have a much better game tonight. Like, you're not going to get 3 straight bad shooting performances from Alex Caravan. He's been in college forever. He's been in too many big games. And I think having a guy like Caravan, like, there's no doubt, like, everybody's playing the biggest game of their lives tonight. But I think the combination of Dan Hurley, a head coach, and Alex Caravan, who's playing in his 3rd national title game in his career, like, they've already been through this. They've already been through the extended media sessions. They've already gone through this process of waking up Monday morning for a national championship game and knowing what to expect. But the difference is that they were the favorite in both of those games. Tonight they're not. And I think they are going to be this is going to be a team that's going to play with a little bit of house money. And I think Caravan along with those guards and Terrace Reed establishing himself early in this game, if they want a chance, UConn, that's the way things are going to go. But everybody has been everybody's been preaching out the insane Dan Hurley numbers of just the NCAA tournament, and I understand it. Like, dude, it's tough to step in front of, just because Hurley, what is he, like 18-1 in the last 19 NCAA tournament games? And the one game he lost was to the Florida Gators last year, who were kind of built similarly to this Michigan team, where, I would say now, I'd probably say like I'd give an edge to like Florida's guards last year, of course. But man, when like Florida's bigs last year with and they ran it back with the same crew this year with Alex Condon and Thomas Houck, and they even had Handlocked off the bench. Like that trio of bigs was too much for UConn last year, but UConn, obviously different rosters, different teams, and all of that. But I'm just going back to the one data point where Hurley did lose in an NCAA tournament game. Like UConn was in control of that game, and it took some silly and janky shots from Walter Clayton Jr. To ultimately put Florida on top in that second round game last year. So I get it. Like UConn's gonna have to have a great shooting performance, and if I'm recalling correctly, UConn did have themselves like a great game shooting the basketball. I think they also just kind of caught Florida a little bit off guard. They didn't shoot it themselves either too well in that one. And then when it came down to crunch time, the guard stepped up. So I'm very interested to see how this one pans out. Michigan has won every game with margin. What the thing is that like St. Louis in the second round on Michigan's run they get here. St. Louis, the Billikens, coached by Josh Schertz, those guys were shooting a ridiculous amount of threes and making them. And Michigan was like still with a 3, 4, 5 possession lead. And you're like, are you kidding me? Like this St. Louis team is playing outstanding basketball right now. And they're still like 4 steps behind. So look, this Michigan team, the bottom line is I think they're going to be too much, but you're not going to count out a guy like Dan Hurley. But that's why we play the games. That's why we play the games, and that's why I'm very interested and intrigued to see this one tonight. One more game on the college basketball hardwood for the 2025-26 season. Before we get into all of this offseason and transfer portal madness and all the moving parts, the portal officially opens up tomorrow, which who knows how many more players jump in it. But just very, very intrigued for this game tonight. Enjoyed college basketball. Enjoy the last hoops game because you're not going to get it till November, folks. With a bunch of new players and a bunch of new teams and, roster retention is so important these days because it hardly happens. And I just think like you're going to see like new teams are going to come and are jump into the equation next year. I think you're getting 2 really good teams tonight. You're getting a Michigan team that has no weaknesses really. And you have a UConn team that, is not even like top 5 team in this tournament really. And on paper, of course, but they got one of the best coaches in the sport that has willed them this far. And, that's why we're going to play the game tonight. And I'm very excited to see how it goes. But I think Michigan ultimately, is Michigan going to drop 90 in this one? I'm going to say they don't. I'm going to say they drop like in the 8. They're going to surpass 80 points in this game. But I think this is a Michigan victory tonight to ultimately cut down the nets, win the national championship. Let's call it 10 to 12 points. I think they're going to be in control of this one. Is it going to be as dominant as the Arizona game? I'm going to say probably not. I don't think they'll like be up 25 or anything. Like I got enough respect for Hurley in that regard. I don't think Hurley's going to get blown out of the gym. But I do think Michigan will be in control. They'll have themselves a double-digit lead. And, I think the opportunity will be there for UConn. They might hit a couple shots in this, like, to cut it to, like, maybe 10 or 8 late. But I think Michigan will make their free throws. Whether Yaxel Lendeborg is 100% or not, I think Michigan's gonna come, rise to the occasion, and ultimately, get this thing done. But good to be talking with everybody, whether you caught us live or you catch us at a later time and want to fact check us. Hey, if UConn comes in here and pulls off another upset, we will rightfully come back and recap the game and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly on all sides of the coin with this one. But enjoy the game tonight, folks. And we'll come back tomorrow, the next day. I'll tweet something out at Nick Urias _ on the Twitter Spaces as far as just a national championship recap. We'll probably dive into some transfer portal stuff as well. Maybe a little Mountain West transfer portal update with all the names that have already been put into the portal and what that looks like. Of course, we got ourselves a new refined version of the Mountain West heading into next season for the 2026-27 athletic season. So who knows? We'll probably dive into that, what that looks like, just kind of with the national championship recap, and then just all the changes that are going to be happening just around college athletics as far as new teams coming in, what that's going to look like, how does the schedule and just the whole profile change, the different travel spots. There's going to be a lot to unpack in that because there's a lot of changes between the Mountain West. I mean, losing a lot of firepower, and I would say more so in particular with basketball, but still with football, and just the new teams coming in, and there's going to be a lot to unpack there. So we're going to save that for an episode later in the week. And yeah, that's where we're at right now. As Monday, April the 6th, things are starting to wind down. Good. We can use a little break. Been nonstop all throughout March. But hey, appreciate everyone for joining us. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Always appreciate the feedback, the love from everybody. Trying to grow the channel a little bit more and more. So always appreciate everybody. Once again, I'm your host, Nick Urias, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.